Welcome to episode 31 of Military Veterans Podcast, where we talk to veterans to learn about their stories and experiences. And today we're joined by Ryan Yates. Hey, Ryan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No worries. How are you doing today?
I'm good, yourself?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
It's taken me ages to set up in this really small booth we're in because we've been lent a small space, haven't we?
Yeah, so my friend owns For Me Apparel and a tattoo studio, and from there he uses this space through his own kind of podcast, and he does his artistic interpretations, we'll say, in here. He comes in here because it's soundproof and stuff, and he'll draw for like days at a time. And that's where all the monsters and it's all part to do with his clothing brand, which is all about mental health and things like that. So yeah, he let us use this, and yeah. I thought it was a lot bigger than it was.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this and you want to jump on YouTube and just check out the beginning of this video, you can see all of the For Me bits and pieces in the background. It's
on all the social medias, For Me Apparel, and it's good clothing, and he's a good guy, and the message behind the clothing is, you wear your clothing for you, so every design is a design that you see head on, rather than wearing it head on for the world to see, which I like personally with my background and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty funky. But setting up in what you thought was quite a big booth, it's been a challenge, but we've got everything in, got the cameras up, so hopefully it'll be a good recording. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on and being a guest. So we'll start off like we do with every episode. We'll have the 4 questions, bullet point answer, and then we'll go into your episode. Sound good?
Great.
Awesome. So first question is, when did you join?
September 2004.
September 04, nice. Yeah. I say 04, it really annoys me when I hear that back, 2004. It's a very American thing, 04, isn't it? Yeah. What service and branch did you join?
So I joined the Army, and I was Cat Badge for Royal Artillery.
Okay. You say that with little...
Yeah, the Cat Badge is an issue for the unit that I serve with, for many reasons, recruiting and things like that, and it's a bit of a sticking point for a few guys.
Okay, so what was your branch?
So I was in 473 Special Appease Battery, which is actually, you run a tri-service selection.
Okay.
And then anyone can come and serve. You can do a 2-year post and then go back to your unit, or you can stay. But if you want to stay with the unit and do the job that you've just done, for me, was like an 18-week selection course for, then you have to recap badge to the artillery, and it actually loses us a lot of really good guys because they don't want to recap badge.
Oh, really?
Because
okay.
we don't wear a normal colour beret, and we wear a black stable belt and things like that, it's still, people still just go, oh, you're in the artillery.
Right.
For some infantry recce platoon sergeants and stuff that come do the course, they can't just quite.
Okay, I see. I kind of understand now that little bit of it's not hesitance, but a little bit of not pain either, but
yeah,
a little bit of I don't know what you want to call it, but okay, we'll come on to that later. Hopefully, when we talk more about your episode, about your time in the service. So, talking of your service, how long did you serve for?
9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
And then what was the rank that you got to?
The dizzy heights of Lance Bombardier.
Lance Bombardier.
Yeah.
Is that an artillery?
Yeah, artillery Lance Corporal.
Lance Corporal, essentially. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Well, that's a great summary. But let's rewind the clock. So where was you born and where did you grow up?
So I was born in Bolton and I grew up in Bolton. Very kind of insular small town, as you've seen because you've been in the city centre today. Relatively normal childhood, to be honest with you. My mum and dad split up when we were young, and I was put into like a position of responsibility very, very young. I've got 2 younger brothers, and the military was just a good avenue for me to kind of get involved into, and join and get me away from Bolton. I think I find a lot of people in small towns run that risk of you get stuck in staying in a small town.
Yeah.
And I think, for me, I wanted a fresh start, so the Army was a good avenue for me to go down.
Okay. Well, before we go down that avenue, what was schooling like for you? Did you stay within Bolton for the whole of your education? There was no moving around?
Yeah, so literally, I went to a primary school which was like 2 miles away from my house. I used to walk back at like 7 because back in the day you could do that.
Okay.
My younger brothers went to a different primary school, so they finished just after me, so I looked after myself until like my granddad, who was like this kind of patriarch of our family, kind of brought my brothers back from school, and then he'd look after all of us. But it was one of those things. I did my primary school in Bolton, and then I went to a secondary school, which was 2 bus rides away from my house in Bolton. And then I left secondary school and went to the Army Foundation College at Harrogate. So,
right.
Yeah, really central Bolton was everything when I was young, to be fair.
So was you good at like academical aspect, or if that's even a word?
Yeah, I think for me, I always could try harder at school.
Okay.
If it was a subject I enjoyed, I kind of, in my not being big-headed, I excelled at it. So I like history. I was really good at history at school. I was a fat lad, so I wasn't good at PT at school. I hated it. I played a bit of football and stuff, but my school, like, you used to go, you had a full running kit and you went and did cross-country on the streets and, like, running through forests and stuff, and all the civvies could watch you running, like, fat knacker at the back, running down the road and stuff, and I enjoyed school, but I think because I come from a relatively poor area, but I went to a very affluent secondary school, I kind of very early on saw the divide within, as much as people don't say it now, like the class divide. Like, people had wealth that I didn't have, and people had clothes that I didn't have, and people used to look at me like I was poor.
Right.
Because I suppose we were. But
okay.
Looking back now, I found I was in a lot of fights at secondary school because I come from quite a rough area, and I was just kind of in that mentality of, if there's a problem, you kind of sort it out with your hands, which is the wrong mentality. But especially at my secondary school, it was very religious, so you had to achieve it. There was a point structure. You couldn't just apply to join my secondary school. It wasn't a private school. It was like one level below. So in Bolton, you can go to X amount of secondary schools and you just apply, and it goes off borough, so where your postcoded. Mm-hmm. And the school I went to, you had to apply, so you had to go to church. So, like, I was an avid church goer. I say avid, I was dragged to church to get into secondary school. We went on, like, church holidays. You had to be part of extracurricular activities, so, like, Cubs and Scouts, played for, like, a local football team. You had to accrue X amount of points to be accepted into the school. And they were religious. Like, the headmaster was a reverend. You had to do communion once a month, or you had to go to the chapel they had and have a church service once a month and things like that.
Okay. And then you mentioned Harrogate. So you mentioned also about that being part of your mindset. Was that due to family? Was any part of your family within the military give you that enticement?
Yeah, so both my great-granddad served in the Second World War. My granddad did national service. And I only later on in life found out that other than my dad, like in my direct line of kind of heritage, he's the only person who hasn't served in like the last 140 or 50 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We can trace it right back to pre-First World War, which I didn't know at the time. But my granddad, like I said before, kind of brought us up. He joined the Merchant Navy at like 12. So I grew up with these stories of my granddad travelling the world and showing us pictures. And, at like 12 years old, stood in Africa on a boat. He was like a chef, started off as like the spud peeler, and went on to be a chef and stuff. So I grew up with these kind of stories, and then academically wise, I always enjoyed reading.
Okay.
And my granddad always got me into books, and I remember like the first book I ever read completely that I can remember thinking this was a good book and really like captivated me was a book called Beau Geste, and it's about 3 British guys who they joined the French Foreign Legion. And there's a lot of stigma behind it, and because like there's been a theft and all this kind of stuff. But I just remember like the book painting this story of these 3 guys joining the Legion and the uniforms. It almost romanticizes joining the military and becoming somebody different and a completely different person, and a level of confidence, and walking around wearing medals, and women love you and they want to bang you because you've got medals on and stuff. And like I remember thinking like, this is what I want. Like, I didn't like who I was as a youth. Like, I wasn't confident, and because I wasn't confident, I solved everything with my hands because I was a fat lad, so I was bigger than most people my age anyway. And I come from a rough background in a kind of posh school, so no one kind of had the. If I had a fight with someone, people were more shocked that violence was going on. Like, whereas where I come from, it happened all the time. So, like, I think reading and I fell in love with the romance behind, I think, joining the military, and who I thought it would turn me into, and where I thought it would take me, and the things I thought I would see. And that married up with my stories of like my granddad and traveling the world at like 12 and 13 and doing some mad stuff. Like, he getting locked up in Mexico and being on like a work gang, press gang for like 5 months for getting in a drunken fight in Mexico, and then getting E&E'd on a tuberculosis ship by a load of nuns because they all caught TB. And then the Mexicans have gone like, right, get out. And they put them on like a plague ship full of nuns and stuff. And I was like, I grew up with this, so I thought joining the army, this was what I was going to do. So because I was always joining the army, I never bothered with trying to do well at school.
Got it, yeah.
Because I was like, well, I'm not going to need that because I'm going to do this. In actual fact, like, you do definitely need
something.
You definitely need a foundation,
that, right?
Massively.
And talking of foundation, Harrogate. How did you hear about Harrogate? Because I know I didn't when I was joining, but I wish I had, because it sounds like it's a good stepping stone into the military life at a young age, because you joined at 16, didn't you?
Yeah, so I heard about Harrogate through the Army Careers Office. So I went and I want to join the army, and they said like, what are your predicted grades and stuff like this, and then I told them, and they were like, right, well, you'll be a prime candidate for the Army Foundation College because you can't deploy an operational tour until you're, I think it was 17 and a half, then it moved to 18. But that might be wrong. It might have been 18 all the time. You know, if you went and go to Harrogate, it's for a year. Okay. And by the time you leave that and get to your regiment, you're primed then to go on operational tours. Your age difference and stuff will be filled up. And it was like the first 2 years of your service don't count to your entitlement. So if you join at 16, you do 24 years rather than 22, because your 22 years doesn't start until you're 18. And they painted the picture of, you know, this is what junior leaders used to be, and these are going to be your future non-commissioned officers and section commanders and platoon sergeants. And I was sold. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And it was actually in the careers office. I was watching videos, and I saw a video of guys in a full subsurface OP. And I was like, in Bosnia. And I was like, I want to do that. And this guy, and the sergeant major at the time was like, oh, you can't do that, mate. You know, because it was 473. So I actually saw my unit at the Army Careers Centre. I was like, I want to do that. And the guy's like, oh, you can't do that. But if you join the artillery as a cap badge, you know, once you've done a few years in the army, then you can go on for selection for that unit. And I was like, right, yeah, this is what I want to do. So I went to Harrogate, and I thoroughly enjoyed Harrogate. Like, I can't lie, it was hard. It was a massive culture shock for me. But I do think, and having seen basic training and been involved in training whilst in the military, as much as some people are throwing on this, I do think that going to Harrogate and spending a year basically in basic training / phase 1, like, you do come away with a lot more knowledge than guys do who went to Catterick for 12 weeks. Like, your weapon drills and tactics and things like that, they go a lot more in depth on it. And I do actually feel, having been to Harrogate and seen, not in the non-derogatory term to other people that did normal basic training, but I do think it does fit the kind of junior leaders picture that I was projected when I joined the army, that, you know, because you spend that extra time in going on exercise, and I think like we did like 10 weeks of exercises over the year. Okay. And live firing drills and blank firing drills and section attacks and IBSR shoots and things like that. You just do a lot more, I think, obviously you do, because you're there for a year. So I think it puts you in a bit better stead when you do go to your regiment and to phase 2, because you've got a little bit more confidence with knowing tactics and knowing your position in the firing line and knowing burst fire manoeuvre inside and out back to front. Like, I do think that it is a good environment, although obviously as the world gets a little bit softer, it's probably a really nice place to go. I think I was quite fortunate that I just left as like a guy 67s came in and stuff like that, because I think it's probably changed an awful lot since I went there.
So with Harrogate, for anyone that is interested in joining that, am I correct in thinking that it's kind of college? So you go and study during the day?
So you study, it's not just during the day, it's they do, when I was there, it was like application and number, comm skills, which is basically English, IT, and it's just programmed into your week. So for example, in the morning you might be doing PT, and you get like being at school or college, you get a full timetable. So like, you know, in the morning you might do PT, then you might have field craft, after lunch you've got double AON, which application and number, and you'll go and do maths. Okay. And then like after that you'll have something else, and it's just scheduled into your week. So it's not like every single day. You might only do 4 or 5 sessions of any education all week, and some weeks you might have none. It just kind of depends on when you've got exercises and things like that, and it's all programmed around the military training. So, you know, you'll march off the square from doing drill, and you'll go and then do English for an hour. Right. And stuff like that. It's weird, but it actually does work. I think it's just the right balance of enough education and learning with enough military stuff. And because obviously the staff that do the education, they realise you're getting thrashed all the time, so they're dead nice to you.
Right.
So
okay.
like, and that little bit of niceness when you've just been getting beasted, you're like, oh, it's not too bad this actually. People don't think I'm an absolute shitbag. Like,
Sounds like that balance worked for you.
yeah, it did for me.
And you said it was as a year of training essentially, but also building up your education. So education wise, would you walk away from with that? Is it A levels or?
So it was at the time dependent on what you got at school. So if you got, probably it's all changed now, but I think if you got, like, say for example, I got a C in English at school, so I already went in with a comms skill NVQ level 3. So I did NVQ level 4 comms, which was like an A level.
Okay.
But if you went with no English or a lower level English, then you would go on to like level 3. And they kind of, it was basically, you would go up you'd shoot one level higher than what you left school with, effectively.
Sounds like it is a good balance. So for anybody that's listening out there that's contemplating joining young, that sounds like a real good option. So
I thoroughly endorse, as much as, you know, some old sweats are like, don't do it. Like, I really do think that, especially if you're not sure and joining at 16, you know, I think I was probably leaving the army like 3 or 4 times during my Harrogate kind of time, and you know, I'm done with it. And I think if the procedures weren't in place, I probably, once you've been thrashed a few times, like, I would have left. But because of the situation and the way it is, and I'm like, just as you're on the brink of, right, this is too much for me, then you go, you're going to go and have double English now. You're like, oh, she's all right. She brings Twixes. Everything will be all right.
Fantastic. Whilst you're at Harrogate, do you know where you're going cat badge wise?
So you make an application for what cat badge you want to go to, and you have to choose 2, I think it is, or it might be 3. You start off the first 6 to 8 weeks, I think it's 6 weeks, but it might have been 8 weeks, with the college cat badge and your college berry. And then when you pass off the square, you basically then have been told what cat badge you're going to be, and you pass off the square and there's a change of berries parade, and that's when your parents can come and see you for the first time since you've gone. And you go and you change berries on the square, and then you march off and you actually get a week's leave at the end of that. And you can go home with your families and things like that. And then the next time your families come is when you're passing off the square at the end of your kind of college time.
Okay. So then after all of that, do you go to your first unit or
phase 2?
You go to phase 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you do a lot of training.
That's when everyone's then splitting up to do their phase 2 or trade training or whatever it might be. So being artillery cat badge, you go off and do that, is that correct?
Yeah, so we went down to Larkhill in Salisbury, which is like the home of the artillery. And I mean, I haven't been to many other phase 2 establishments, but I always thought Larkhill was hard because you get like sergeant majors coming back to coming back to Larkhill to do education and courses for them to get promoted. So you could, at any one time, you can be cutting around, and there'll be like a load of officers come past you or a load of sergeant majors come past you. So there's a lot of people to ping you if you're up to no good and you're up to shenanigans, which we all did in training. I just think it's a lot harder. There's a lot more people that can catch you out. But I know for artillery, when you go down to Larkhill, you kind of go, some people are going guns and they'll do like guns training, and then they do comms. So you do your signals training if you're going to be a signaller. You also do your driving training, which is one of the things I really do think is good about joining the artillery, because I know guys who were in my unit come through the infantry and they were like 24, 25, couldn't drive. Like, I learned to drive at 17. Mm-hmm. Literally, I was put in a car 3 days later, you're doing your driving test.
Yeah.
You failed it, you're a wanker, you're doing it again tomorrow. Like, and that was that. And then some people, say for example, you're going to tow things, then you'll go straight off your Cat B onto B plus E. So you can pull a trailer, and they're really good at, especially, I don't know about other environments, but for the artillery, they're really good at kind of giving you a lot of tools at Larkhill. And I think the shortest period of time you can be there is 9 weeks.
Right.
The longest is up to 20, dependent on trade training, dependent on if you pass all the efficient testing to go to your unit. And that's where you go to Larkhill knowing what regiment you're going to, generally, but you can still change when you're at Larkhill. But a lot of guys who've done that end up spending a long time down there because you've gone down one trade route and then you've changed, and sometimes you need to do additional training and things like that. But yeah, so it was like, I think I did Larkhill in 9 weeks, which was one of the shortest times. I just did my driving and signals,
right,
and then went to my unit. But even that, it's like 61 weeks before I got to unit.
Yeah. And now talking to you, you are the first artillery person to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
So hearing that phase 2's at Larkhill is really interesting because, Camberley, phase 2 for engineers, isn't that far from Larkhill. So we kind of all know that southern area of the UK. But then you mentioned that you go off to your unit. But before you do that, was there anything on your phase 2 that, one, maybe you excelled at, or two, sticks in your mind as a really exciting piece of training?
This is very geeky.
That's fine. You can be geeky.
I'll get stick for this from the lads, but I always enjoyed signals training because for some reason I find I'm really good at VP. And like just being on the radio and remembering things and voice procedure and stuff like that. I don't know why. I think it's because it was the first kind of actual proper soldiering skill that I learned, because I went to Larkhill and went straight on my signals level 1. And I really enjoyed it, which is very, very geeky. Because later on in life, like, no one wants to carry the radio in the patrols. Like, so I don't know radios, but I actually really enjoyed learning signals.
So you're good at the phonetic alphabet?
I was okay at it. I'm never going to say I'm good at it, but I was okay at it, yeah.
Excellent. So was you excited to go to your first unit? And you mentioned 473. 473. See, it's not a well-known...
No, it's not.
Because I didn't know it until I spoke to you.
Yeah.
Did you know that you were en route to go down there after seeing that video, in that careers office?
So, I always say I'm not a very naturally lucky person, but I did land on my feet with the 473 thing. And what happened was I joined Harrogate to go to the artillery. I wanted to go to 473, but they said you can't recruit straight to 473. You had to have done a minimum of 2 years adult service. So we joined 5 Regiment, which is where 473 are based.
Mm-hmm.
Join 5 Regiment, get fit, spend time at the regiment, and then as soon as you're eligible, apply to go on the selection course. So that was my intention. And then when I was down at phase 2, because of the problem you've just said there, like not many people know about it, recruiting when I first started, it's a lot better now because like Special Forces pay and all that kind of stuff. But they opened up and said, listen, anyone can come and try selection. If you think at 17 you can come and pass a selection course that infantry recce platoon sergeants are failing, then come. Because they needed the manning. And a very good thing, and this, I'm not going to say this is how it was done. I'm going to say this is what I think was happening. Because if you didn't pass the course to go into the patrols, they used to keep blokes to go in like the signals deck or the stowers. So it was a good way of them getting manpower by opening it up to anybody who came. And if you joined 473 direct, then if you failed the course, which, a lot of people do, they then can go, oh, well, we've got this job for you here. You can stay and you can try the next selection course or whatever. So it actually did boost manning, which was very, very, like when I first joined the unit, it was very, very critically needed. But I was one of the first, and I believe, unless someone's done it since me, which I think I'm the youngest person ever to pass 473 selection.
Okay. So had you gone to your unit and then bounced up, or did you go straight from phase 2?
I went straight from phase 2 to 473.
Right, okay.
Because I was told you can recruit straight there, they need the manpower, so I left Larkhill, and then went up to Catterick, week off. I went to 473 lines, and they were like, this was in November, and they said, right, you're on the January selection course. You're going to go on Signals Level 2 course, which started 2 days ago, but the Sergeant Major sorted it out so you can get on the course.
Nice.
You've just done Level 1, so what you've missed you should be okay with.
Cool.
You're going to do that because if you fail the course, which was expected, you're going to go in the Signals troop.
Right.
And I was like, right, okay.
Yeah, and you were cool with that because you were geeky with signals anyway.
Yeah, we won't keep telling everyone that.
Well, they can just keep replaying it.
Yeah, I'm going to get clips of this for the rest of my life now. But yeah, so I was like, okay. And like this Sergeant Major was fucking bear of a man. So I was like, yeah, that's what I'm doing then, no problem.
So 473.
Yeah.
You mentioned Special Forces pay. So is it coming under the Special Forces umbrella?
So right now, I'm not 100%. It didn't used to. So we were a brigade and divisional asset.
Okay.
And what happened is now the guys get special pay. We get para pay. When I left, we didn't do jumps, but now they do jumps.
Right.
And they get Special Forces pay now, which we never did and they don't give you back pay for that either. And the role that the guys are in now is a role, very fortunately, I was involved in developing and progressing the unit onto. So we kind of moved from a conventional job we were doing to a bit more of a more modern role, like find, fix and strike, things like that. So now the guys, you know, they've got cry kit, got running cry kit, and they get the pay, go and do the jumps course and stuff. My kind of era we were the guys who were proving the concept for that to pave the way for where it is now.
All right.
The guys get the pay that they deserve, in my opinion, for the work they do, because they're like always busy. I lived out of a bag for my entire time. I was at 473.
So you mentioned going to Catterick to do that training.
Yeah.
So could you share a bit on what that training is? As you mentioned, not many people passed it, so it sounds like it's quite arduous. Yeah,
so 68 people started my selection course and 6 passed, with 2 held over. So it would have been 8 to go on to the next course, because there were certain elements of the course that they didn't pass. So they would go on to the selection course after mine. They used to run 2 courses a year, and it's brought down into different modules. So module 1 is the hill phase. At the end of the hill phase, you do test week. And then if you fail test week, you obviously go then. And at any point during the entire process, including the day you get badge, you can just get a stand-up fail.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. You do... From that, they're not in the right order, but you go from test week, you do basic patrols, field firing, signals week, medical week, advanced patrols, OP week, which is 2 weeks, OP week, like theory, and then you go on an OP exercise. Then you come back from that, you do like a secondary live firing, and then you do final exercise, and it accumulates over, my course was 18 weeks.
Okay.
And they used to run 2 a year. I think they do a beat up course, and then if you pass the beat up course, then you get put onto the selection, and I believe they do 1 a year because the unit is so busy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So from your time in that training, does anything stand out? One, again, might be a moment that you really enjoyed, and maybe a moment that you're like, fuck this.
Yeah, to be honest, there was a few, and like I said, I'm still, I believe, the youngest person to pass selection, and for me, I genuinely believe the only reason I passed is because I wasn't aware I could say, I don't want to do this anymore.
Okay.
Because I come straight from Harrogate, straight to phase 2. I didn't understand I could just say, I VOR, I voluntarily withdraw from this course. Like, I'm done. And people were doing it. Like, this shit's not for me, I'm gone. And I didn't realise I could do that. I didn't know the procedure of doing that. So I just thought, and everyone told me I was going to fail. Like, there's no way a 17-year-old's going to pass this course. And I saw guys with years and years of experience, operational tours under the belts, failing or dropping off the course, whatever. And I was like, well, it's going to happen to me. So I'm just going to do as good as I can do until someone tells me I failed. And then at least I've developed my own soldiering skills. I've got fitter. Like, we do 4 weeks on the hills before test week. You know, I'll get my goat legs and I'll lose a bit of Christmas weight because, you know, it was straight after Christmas, and I'll probably fail because everyone's told me I'm going to, but I'll just keep going. And I genuinely believe that the only reason I did pass at such a young age is because I just didn't know I could just say, I don't want to do this, because it is still to this day one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Like, I'm probably massively underselling it, and people from the unit be like, you're not said about this. Like, it was hard. Everything was hard. The learning curve was horrendous. I was like, I am 17. I do not know about any of this. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, there's no way I'm passing this course. I'm so out of my depth. And all the time, you're getting critiqued on everything. Like, you can't be a grey man. You can't be the guy who's always at the front, because then the day you're at the back, you're on the radar.
Right.
And you're like, oh my God. And then the first day you go, we used to do selection in a place called Strone Camp up at Gerlock Head.
Okay.
In Scotland. And the first morning we got knocked up at about 4:30. We had this PT session called Welcome to Strone, the Padre is not here.
Right.
and we got thrashed for about 4.5 hours. And I remember coming back off that and I thought, I am not going to last a week. I'm done now. Like, holy shit, what have I done? This was a mistake. And like, it was just, I think back now and I was like, I still don't fathom how I managed to tick all the boxes. To someone's probably going to write in and go, you didn't, but like, I just don't know now how I managed to pass. It was just so hard. Like I said, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in the military, and still like the biggest achievement in my life is passing selection, which I suppose is for some people would sound sad, but to serve in the unit and to serve with the guys that serve with the unit has been the greatest accolade and greatest accomplishment of my life. And I feel privileged to have spent time with the unit and gone on operational tour and been with those guys. And I think the best thing I learned on selection was definitely the live firing and field firing, 4 6-man contact drills, and just doing things that the regular army weren't doing.
Okay.
And I'm like, right, this is good, this is cool, like this is what you join for. And you know, we were cutting around with like 12, 15 mags bombed up, and most guys carry 6, and you know, mag changes on the move, and doing all these like sexy pistol drills and stuff before guys even carry pistols. Like we used to use, when I first turned up, we were using the Browning high power pistol,
right?
And like the sat major in charge was like SAS, and he's teaching you how to shoot pistols between your knees and stuff. Like, this is fucking cool.
Nice.
Like, this is everything I thought it was going to be. And I think, that was the first time it was the first thing I did in the army, and I thought, this is fucking super cool. And all the time it was drilled into us, this is not what regular army do. Like, you need to be appreciative of where you are and the environment that you're in, and don't drop the ball, and you know, make sure you're worthy of the time we're putting into you and the money that the government's put. And that was always drilled into, like, the money the government is putting into turning you into a soldier now, you know, you can't waste it. So for me as a young lad, I was just like, right, I'm a sponge, whatever I need to do. Like, I don't want to go and do a normal job now. I don't want to go and do a muster parade. Like, we know the muster parades, like, never. Like, I don't want to go and do that now. So I think just I still remember, like, when you pass, you get a picture of, we got a picture of the cobbler, which is like a really high peak. And on the end of selection, on a test week, our last march is an endurance march, and it's 57 kilometres over 12 hours, I think it took. And the test week, for anyone who's interested in it, is you do day 1 to gain entry onto the course. You do BPFA, military swim test, 8 mile tab, and bleep test. If you fail any of those on that day, you're gone. And then you do basic military testing, like map reading tests and stuff like that. And test week, you do a 10 miler. It's got to be done in 1:45 in Scotland. And you do 18k, that's the next day. Next day, 22k. Known distance, unknown time.
Okay.
So I still now don't know what the time frame was or what time I got.
Yeah.
And then the last day, which are all individually led. So you get like 15-minute intervals, right, you can go now, right, you can go now. If the DS think you're on the Bergen train following someone in front of you, you get thrashed.
Right, yeah.
And you've got all checkpoint drills and stuff like that, and all these cost you time. So if you go in and you've got shit checkpoint drills, they'll fuck you off and you've got to come back. But that's eating precious minutes that you don't have. And then the last day is an endurance march. 57 kilometres for us. 50 kilometres in, they stopped and we all took our Bergens off, and I thought, right, we're done now. And then, but because you use your train on the terrain, I thought, we're not anywhere near the car park. Like, right, lads, get on the stretcher. And the last 7k was a stretcher run. And I was like, holy shit. So, like, we'd done that anyway. I digress. But we get presented a picture of the cobbler. And I remember one of the guys on my course, one of the DS on it, he'd literally, the message on my picture, because everyone signs it who's in the unit. Well, I'll say that. Anyone who's in the lines at the unit when they're doing the presentations to give it your badging day, he wrote, don't take your foot off the gas now. This is just getting past the door. This is now day 1. And that to me was like, I've done all this and now it's just day 1. And that was a big, like, that hit me. Like, I thought, well, I'm past, like, that's that. No, that just gives you the right to be in the lines, and that just gives you the right to be in the room with the other guys who have passed. And like, our officers have to do the selection course.
Right.
So, and like, every day in that unit is, you know, it's a stand-up fail day, and you have to turn up to work every day knowing you've got to do your best. Like, there's no space for fuck-ups. And I really took that on board with me, and I'll literally have the picture at home, framed, like, don't take your foot off the gas now, this is just day one, you've earned the right to pass the door.
That's cool. Well, I don't know if it's possible, because I've not asked you this, but would it be possible to take a picture of that? And like, I always blur out other people's faces other than the guests.
Yeah.
Maybe we can put that in the video here.
Yeah. Luckily, I'll send you a picture of it. It literally is just a picture with my number rank name on it, the date that I passed the course, and then everyone's signatures. There's no actual individual pictures.
Oh, is it not?
So
Okay.
I'll send you the full
We'll see what we can do. We might blur out certain things like reg number or something. I don't know. Cool. We'll come up with it. But thanks for sharing that. It's really cool to hear what you go through with that selection course and why it is so difficult to pass.
Yeah.
So then you head off to the main unit.
Yeah.
And where is that? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah. So that's at Catterick.
Oh, is that at Catterick still?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're still based at they're at 5 Regiment. Which is like a sticking point for a lot of guys with it being artillery and stuff. And obviously 473 is tri-service. So
yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. A lot. The artillery cat badge causes a lot of issues, and it's at Catterick. The best thing about the whole camp is it's right on the A1, so you can leave. But yeah, it was really good, and day-to-day life at that unit is very good compared to what I see from other units. Like, you're always on continuation training, like, or every week you're doing some kind of training, loads of PT. I did so many educational courses, advanced forces team medics, and then I did a hospital placement on the back of that and
Did
stuff
you?
like
Okay.
like, people think artillery and they don't think of half the stuff that the guys do, which is what I think the cat badge is a bit of a disservice to the unit. You have a khaki berry and black stable belt, and the R2 are different ones, and a blacked out cat badge and stuff, but still the cat badge is artillery.
Is that because that's where it stemmed from? Do you know the history?
I do know the history.
Hey, go for it, because I don't. I seriously don't.
I'm gonna have like Major General Stone there. No, that was wrong. So basically, long and short is 2 artillery batteries back in the day, an OP's troop, amalgamated and joined and created into one battery, and they were based in Germany originally. So as the army, as it always does, upscales and starts getting rid of units, the old OP troop, and the unit was originally formulated for the Cold War. So the idea was, I feel like I'm on an exam now because I know people are like, mate, your unit history is shocking. So the concept of the unit was that, obviously the Russian work on vanguard, rearguard. So the idea was that the vanguard would kind of push over the OPs, so where the guys were, and they used to dig in mexes back in the day. So a mex is like the size of the back of a DAF or bigger. And these guys,
a truck.
Yeah. And these guys used to dig them in full subsurface, so troops can walk over the top of them, and then they would observe from it. And then once they caught the enemy on a target or a location, they'd then call in indirect fire. So artillery, mortars, fast air, which is the original concept of the unit. So like, as the vanguard pushed over the top, they would get smashed, and then the guys could extract before the rear guard pushed up. And then that's obviously developed and developed into, we did FSTs for a long time on tour.
What's that?
So fire support teams.
Okay.
So you'd go out on an operational theatre, you'd go out with a guy like infanteers on the ground. You'd be an infantry soldier, but you'd also be controlling, you'd have an MFC, or you would control the mortars, you control artillery. If you did CAS or FAC roles, which guys from 473 all did, you would, be talking to helicopters or fast jets, and then when you got in a contact, you'd then, as well as be putting rounds down, you're bringing mortar barrels into position and dropping mortars, or dropping artillery, or bringing attack helicopters in, or bringing in fast air. And that's how the role from the OPs kind of developed into the FSTs, and then that role then developed on again. But originally it all stemmed from, like, you always needed observers in the artillery, because the Mark 1 eyeball has always been the best thing for bringing in fire and doing BD, battle damage assessments at the end of it. So it all stemmed from being in the artillery, having to basically control artillery fire.
Okay.
And then every kind of artillery gun unit has an OP troop, and 473 just become more developed and refined its skill set, and then just started operating at a higher and higher and higher level, until we actually did FSTs for every Herrick from Herrick 6 until Herrick 17. And I think I'm right in saying were one of the only units that was committed to every Herrick tour, because we never deployed as a full unit, we deployed in patrols.
Okay.
So you would send like 3 patrols or 3 FSTs or...
Fair enough. Now, you mentioned the 473. Am I right in thinking that it's 47/3 or something like that?
4/73.
4/73.
Yeah.
What's that? Again, I'm fascinated because I've just never come across it before.
I feel like I should know this.
You don't?
No.
No?
It come from... So the OP troops all have numbers back in the day.
Right.
So it's like the original troop was like 4 OP troop. I think I'm going to get absolutely hazed to death
That's
for this
fine,
because
that's
my
fine.
history is going to be all wrong. And then another battery and troop amalgamated to create the 473.
Right. Okay. If people want to write in, they can. But
If anyone wants to re-educate me, they can do. But yeah, it all come from the amalgamation of the original OP troop, which was the stay behind OPs.
Yeah.
And that was the reason that 473 developed more than other OP troops, is because with the stay behind OPs, the original OP battery and troop, they did the mexes, which no one else did.
Okay.
And in the history room at the unit lines, they still have an old school mexi that you can go
really?
in and get in, and it's got power and
Nice.
stuff, and you can see like what the guys lived in and stuff.
Okay. So going back to you, you've now passed all the training. You're at your unit. And then what does the kind of like next couple of years look like? Do you start going straight away on operations, or is it pretty chilled? You mentioned you're doing a lot of training, so what does it look like?
Yeah, so as soon as I got into the unit, then I think we did roughly about 6 months continuation training. You would go away and do specific courses, so like heavy weapons cadres for like 50 cal and GMG. You'd go and do advanced force team medics, and with your hospital placement on the back of that. We went and did like the Quartat photography course. We did loads and loads of courses, just education all the time. DZ marking, how like
Which is drop zone, right?
Yeah.
Just for any civilians.
Yeah, sorry. So like how to mark out drop zones and things like that, and landing points.
Which is typically for the parachuters
to
come down.
Yeah, because we obviously we used to work up to 75 k's beyond the forward line of own troops. So like people that say behind enemy lines, I suppose it's a very old term, but you could say that. So one of the big things for us was that resupply would have to be normally via air.
Right.
So we had to have heli riggers to be able to rig stuff to get dropped in, and everyone had to be able to do everybody else's job.
Okay.
So everybody went and did signals courses. Everybody went and did heavy weapons. Like majority of 80% of people will have gone and done the med course. It's only select people did select courses. Most people, the idea was that you could do the job and the guy in the patrol above you and the guy below you.
Okay.
So like all new guys ended up being patrol signaller because you carried the most weight, and that was part of you earning your place with the guys who've been in the unit longer than you.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that continuation training for about 6 months. Some of the guys off my course went straight onto Brigade Surveillance Company in Iraq. And that was one of the big things for my course as well. We were told early on 2 or 3 people from this selection course who pass, if that number passes, you will go straight on tour. So we were like, for me, I was like, I'm going straight on tour. I wasn't chosen to go straight on tour from that. We did. And as that was going on, we were then starting to do training for Herrick 6, which was supposed to be a battery deployment, and it ended up being a troop deployment. And then from that, the battery deployed on Herrick 7. So we kind of spent all the beat up time getting ready for Herrick 6. Then half the kind of guys went, half didn't. Then we all spent, the rest of the unit spent beat up time to go on Herrick 7. And then I didn't get picked for that. And I was like, I'm never getting on tour, me. Like, I am never getting on tour. All the lads are on tour, and I'm never going to get on tour.
You're doing all the training, but still not getting selected.
And it still galls me now, but like on Herrick 7, the unit was awarded the longest desert patrol since World War II.
Oh, really?
And I'm like,
You've
mate,
been there.
I'm in camp, mate, doing all these rubbish jobs, and all the boys are doing the longest desert patrol since World War II and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just a lot of training. And then more continuation courses. I went and did some gunnery courses, so being able to OP at level 3, so being able to control guns, and being able to speak to mortars and learn how to talk to mortars, learning how to do CCA,
What's CCA?
So target helicopters.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Okay.
Which is a very basic level. And then other guys went away and did forward air controllers, so talking to fast air and things like that. And it was always just developing your skill set. And during that time, I did two trips to Belize, which is fantastic. Probably one of the best things I did in the British Army was
Is that for exercise?
Yeah,
like
so
jungle training.
I did. They do exercise Tropical Storm. It used to be called, which is a generic exercise. One of the trips I went to jungle, I did Tropical Storm. But my first trip to the jungle was at the end of my selection course. We basically got told, right, as an extra kind of final exercise, you're in the unit, but you guys are going to go to the jungle. So we managed to send a Sergeant Major away to go to BATSUB, which is like the unit kind of advisory training group that are in the jungle. And to kind of justify his being there, we had to plan an exercise. So they were like, right, send the lads off the last course, develop the soldiering skills. So we went and deployed to the jungle, and we did like 12 weeks jungle training.
Wow.
And that again was kind of a buy-in for the rest of the unit to go, like, the new guys are here, but you know, they've done this, they've done selection, they've gone to the jungle, they've passed. And we had the DS for our exercise in the jungle were actually currently serving Patry members.
Okay.
So like you had the guys putting you through your paces. We did, like, that was a non-conventional, like non-tropical storm exercise. So we did a lot of like field firing, a lot of hard routine, a lot of OPs and CTRs, so close target recce's and things like that, camp reconnaissances, building models, all your basic soldiering, navigation. Like in the jungle is hard. Like people read maps in the UK and go, right, we're going to go this way for a K. In the jungle, you're like, right, I'm going to go to that tree and then I'm going to check my bearing again because everything looks the same. So I landed on my feet. I was just really fortunate that I managed to go to the jungle very early on, develop my soldiering skills, and then that kind of purchase with some of the older lads within the unit to be like, right, okay, these guys aren't, you know, they're all right. And then we start doing unit exercises with mixed patrols. So when the new guys go with the older guys, and that's how you kind of find your feet and kind of get in to the normal swing of the unit, really.
Okay.
So like that was us. We exercised, we did educational courses, we did loads of fitness, just non-stop. Like there would be times when I would be coming home from a course on like a Friday and we'd get a phone call and say, right, you guys come back, POL the minibus, and then on Sunday you're going to go and do this course. And you're like, right, okay. Like that.
So pretty much on the go for, sounds like the first couple of years.
Yeah, really busy because
on the go.
We were, like I said, with the manning issue when I first joined, 473, they never said no to anything. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can commit to that. Yeah, the guys can do that. And still to this day, I know how hard the lads work in the unit now. I still talk to some of the guys up there.
Okay.
And they're just as busy, if not busier, than we were when I was in. And it's just, we always had to prove our worth for a long time.
Yeah.
And you're only ever as good as your last fuck up in the army, aren't you? As you know. So we had to ensure there were none of those, and that we always over-delivered. We always ensured that, you know, we soldiered at a higher level.
Yeah.
And we built a reputation, and you know, the reputation of the unit is good. Most people that have served with people from 473 would say that they're good soldiers, I like to think. And it's the first time that you kind of taught to, you've got to do what you're told. It's the army. But if you've got an opinion or you've got an idea, voice it. Like, we don't want a robot. They want people that can think for themselves as well, but then follow orders if it doesn't go the way that they want it to go.
Okay. So you do all the training, you're missing out on these operational tours, which, you know, most people that join the military are kind of aiming for that, right?
Yeah.
All these trips to Belize or Canada or wherever,
Yeah.
You're training and ready to go on ops. So what was your first operational tour for yourself?
So I managed to get on Herrick 11.
Okay.
So I was supposed to go on Herrick 12, and then I had to deploy early as a battlefield casualty replacement with a team I hadn't worked with on Herrick 11. So I was deployed into Sangin. We worked out of Fob Inkerman, but I was in the PBs on the 611.
And the PBs?
Patrol bases.
Patrol bases,
Yeah,
okay.
so we ran basically, our mission for Herrick 11 was to, in the Sangin AO, area operations, was to secure the 611, which was like the main highway, and stop them seeding IEDs and things like that, as well as doing ground dominating patrols and things like that. So from Fob Inkerman, they basically secure patrol bases along the 611 to the next fob up the road, which was Wishton. And then Wishton did it onto the next fob, and that's how they a kind of very old school mentality of, you know, forts and then a little base and to the in between the next fort kind of thing. So I deployed on that, and it was. I remember being super excited. I was like, I'm going on tour, like finally going on tour, and I'll never forget. One of the lads I said to me, "Listen, Yates, beware what you wish for." And I was like, no, I want to kick doors. I want to, like, this is what I've waited all this time. Like, and I just wanted to get on tour. Like, I needed to go on tour. Everyone had been on tour. I felt like an absolute charlatan because I'd not been on tour. And it was just, and I know some people do an entire, very, very justifiable, very, very good career and never go on tour. But for me, serving in that unit and never cutting my teeth on tour, it's just something I needed to do. It was like, for me, I think it was the rite of passage, and it was the full circle from reading the books when I was a kid and the kind of glorifying everything that goes on an operational tour when you're a kid and you don't know any better. I just needed to go on tour, and I'll never forget, it was like, beware what you wish for. And I was like, oh, all right, Si, like fucking morale vacuum. Yeah, and then I deployed into a patrol base on the 611, and we had I was attached to Air Company 4 rifles, and we had a very, very kinetic tour. We lost quite a few guys. We got a lot of injuries. I actually kept a tour diary, and like my very first patrol on my very first tour, we were troops in contact, and we were in contact like most days. You know, locals were throwing grenades over the wall for breakfast and stuff. We ended up having to build like Hessian barriers that you could jump on either side of. It was extremely kinetic. It was all over the news back in the UK at the time. You know, guys were getting killed in Sangin all the time. I think the statistic came out, it was like the same fatality rates as Korea for that AO on that specific tour. And I'm very conscious of getting into, you know, my tour's harder than your tour. I just think for me, that was my first tour, and it was an extremely kinetic tour. And it was a huge, huge eye-opener. So I think up until that point, I'd just been playing at being a soldier, and I definitely found what it was like to be a real soldier on that tour. And, you know, put training into practice. And, you know, for example, we lost our patrol-based medic. So I stepped into the breach and kind of like, right, I did all my normal patrols as an FST. And then the extra patrols, I went out as a patrol medic.
Okay.
And I actually treated 46 casualties on that tour.
Wow.
Not all British Army, some were local nationals as well,
right.
or Afghan National Army. But I treated 46 casualties myself on that tour, on my very first tour. Like within 4 days of being in Sangin, I was applying tourniquets to guys like who'd lost legs and stuff like that. And then I always remember, beware what you wish for, Yates. And I was like, fuck, I get it now. It's not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we did that. That was 09 to 10, I think. And then when we come back, we'd been back 2 months, and then I got warned on to go back on tour.
Right.
So I actually only had 10 months in the UK, and then went back on tour for 7 months.
And that was on to 13, was it?
That was 14.
That was 14.
Yeah.
Herrick 14. Okay. So was that going with your main group?
No, so we actually, and I need to be careful now. So we actually went to do a new capability. We created a thing called the Theatre Surveillance Troop, and it was involved in putting kit out, sensors out, cameras out to try and locate people that use like firing points and ambush points. And it's a very kind of sneaky role. Yeah. We used to go out at night a lot, and basically where we would put stuff, which I'm not going to say what stuff, but where we would put stuff is exactly the same places people put IDs, or the exact same places where, you know, and we were an AO asset. Like, so people would put requests in for us to go and help out in their AO. So, for example, we've got we keep getting contacted from this murder hall, and we've lost 4 guys, and we can't see them. We can never ping them. Can you come down? Then we'd go out in the dead of night, put our kit out, and then as soon as they went into the firing point, we'd dick them and we'd ping them, and we used to put stuff out with munitions as well, so we'd clack them and give them the good news.
Yeah, well, I won't ask too much on the jobs out there, but was that a 6-month tour or was that shorter?
It was 7 and a bit, because the handover obviously is a lot longer, and we were only the second team to do that concept, so we had to then pass on all the tips and the tricks of the trade we'd learned over our tour to the next teams, best ways of using CAM and how to best do things with this and best do things with that. So your normal 2-week handover just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So we spent, and then we went on kind of joint team patrols as well. So it was like 7.5 months that.
Fair enough. And was it a success from you making that new thing happen?
Yeah, it was a massive success, to be honest.
Good.
The first kind of guys that went out and did the job, very tragically, like one was killed and one was blinded. So we were like, shit, like this is an high risk job. So it was like a different kind of stress. My second tour, it wasn't so much getting rounds down; it was stress. It was confirming IDs at night, like. You yourself know, engineers kind of say, don't confirm at night, just mark and avoid if you can. We couldn't do that. We had to confirm.
Right.
Because we needed to know, well, can we get to where our stuff is? Can we get it back out the ground?
Okay.
Because we can't leave it in there because we can't be able to find it.
Yeah.
So it was a complete different type of stress, I think, for me. It was more... I wouldn't say scary. It was just you could always cut attention with a knife. Whereas on my first tour, there was, when you were downtime, there were a lot of laughter and a lot of banter, but the second job was very serious, especially based on the facts of the guys we lost on the first kind of patrol that went and did that concept. And credit to the guys who were on the first team who did that. They ended up completing the tour with a half-man squad and a half-man team, and they still delivered. They never turned the job down. They just doubled up and did more work. They never got replacements out to theatre in time. And I think that in itself is a testament to the kind of soldiers that serve in the unit. Like, what's happened is fucking shit, but we still got a job to do. We still have to deliver. Yeah. People are still expecting us to deliver to the same standard.
Yeah.
So in a way, it was also good because we went out doing this job, riding on the back of the achievements the guys had made before us, knowing the risks, but also knowing that, if these guys can do it with half a team, then, there's no reason why we can't do it. Mm-hmm. And it was just a lot of... I saw a lot more of Afghanistan on my second tour because on my first tour, we were just based in Sangin. I was based in the 611s, and it was just contacts every day and some fucking heavy firefights. But my second tour, we did a lot more travelling and bouncing from camp to camp, and we even got a few days in like Bastion in between jobs where we'd come back and refit kit and stuff. This is all right. Like Bastion nights have got ice cream and fresh grad and stuff like. So I think it felt the job itself felt a lot cooler on my second tour, even though like the risk and the tension was there.
Yeah.
But like later on in life, I realised that kind of tension probably come from other areas as well, and probably not everyone felt the same way I did on that tour. And we had a couple of scrapes and stuff, and it was good. Like I look back and think I did some cool stuff in the army, and not a lot of people, not a lot of people know about 473. And one of the reasons I'm very grateful to come on this is I can try and push the awareness of the unit as well, because although my unit history is shocking and stuff like that, it's been a while. The guys who serve in that unit and the jobs that the guys are doing now are so much cooler than the jobs that we did as well, and it's only going to get better and better. Like for example, this year is only the 40th year anniversary of my unit. The unit's only been around 40 years. So it's constantly developing, and the soldiers in it are constantly pushing, and and
it sounds like it's evolving all the time. And I think the very small bit I checked online, because I don't go into too much research because it's your unit, you've been part of it, so it's best to come from you and me trying to go, well, I read this. It could be bollocks. But it sounds like it's a very, very small number of people. I think the figure that I saw when I came out was currently like around 70.
Yeah.
Like it's really small.
Yeah.
So it's great that you can share some of your knowledge. Now, by the time you're out there for your second tour, what rank are you at this point?
So I was a Lance Bombardier.
You were? Okay.
Yeah. So what happens is when you pass 473, if you're a private soldier or a gunner or whatever, it classes as a promotion course.
Okay.
But because of my age, it didn't class as a promotion course for me.
Oh, right.
Because the unit kind of felt, mate, you can't come here at 17. So I got badged one day before my 18th birthday. So on my badging parade, I got my badge. We didn't even have different berets at that point. We still wore the same artillery beret with the black tech cat badge. The berets came a few years later. And they were like, right, this is your last day that you can DAOR, like discharge as of right, because I wasn't 18. So any point up until your 18th birthday, you can just say, I want a DAOR, I'm done with the army. So I'm like, do you want a DAOR? Do I? Fuck, no way, this is cool. Like, best thing that's ever happened. And I don't even know where I was going with that.
You were talking about where were we going? Oh yeah, ranks. So you can get your.
So I
rank.
couldn't then promote to Lance Jack, and then it was like, right, you got to do a couple of years. I went on Herrick 11 as a private gunner, and then the officer in charge of my FST was like, mate, there is no way you should still be a gunner. And it was just, I wasn't career failed or anything. It's just the unit was that busy. Things like promotions were not important, and it was a bit like dead man's shoes. Like there's only so many ranks in the unit, so someone has to get promoted for you to then get promoted, or at least that's how it always seemed when we were early on in my time in the unit. And then like I know to promote guys, they started using PIDs from other people's units and stuff like that to promote. So I then got promoted at the end of Herrick 11, went on to Herrick 14 as a Lance Jack, a Lance Bombardier, and then I come back from that, and they were like, right, you're going on a full screws course, and I was like, no, I'm not.
You didn't want to?
No, so I'm a very weird creature, me, and I'm fiercely loyal to people that are fiercely loyal to me, and my friend was getting married. He lives in America, one of my best mates in the world, and I'd gone all the way through Herrick 14, saying I was going to go to this wedding, and the hierarchy knew when this wedding was, and knew I wanted leave, and knew I was saving leave for it, and I was already on the fence. So rewinding a little bit, when I come back from Herrick 11, I went on a gunnery course, which basically was doing the job I'd just done in theatre, but as it always develops, and I'd just come back, I was shit hot on this course because people were trying to learn concepts that I'd just been doing for 6 months very easily. And I started seeing changes in myself that I didn't like, and I was all loved up and stuff, and I was like, I'm done with the army. I'm going to get out. And whilst I was on the gunnery course, my mate messaged me and said, I've been warned on for tour. We're doing this job. I want you to come with me. And he was a guy who I had done Herrick 11 with. And I was like, one of the lads has asked, so I'm going. So I said, yeah, no problems. Like, put my name down, and I'll go here. So like I'd done 14, and like I feel for me to have put my notice in when I've been warned on for tour, I've got some old school notion to me, and I feel like people have looked at me like I was a coward or something. And I think one of the only things I want, and I always struggle when I do like podcasts like this and the stuff that I do now, is that I don't want anyone to ever think that I wasn't a professional soldier. Like, all I want people to think about me is when they look back and think, yeah, Yates, he was a professional soldier. Like, he was a good squad. That's all that I wanted. So for me to then go, oh, you want on the tour? No, I'm getting out. In my mind, which is wrong, and I know it's probably my mental health at the time, but it's the wrong view. Oh, it's cowardice that. I'm not doing that. So I went on tour, and the entire time I was on tour, I was letting everybody know, listen, May next year, I am going to a wedding in Texas. I've saved my leave. This is what's happening. Yeah, no worries. Right, Yates, you're gonna go to Canada, or you're going on a Lance Jack's course.
The full screws.
Yeah, sorry, full screws
Yeah.
course. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm signing off. Like, if those are my options. And I felt a little bit like a guy who I was on tour with ended up being in quite a position of authoritative in my unit, and we were very, very close mates, I felt, and he knew like I was going to this wedding. And it kind of been said, listen, do well on the tour and I'll make sure you go. And then when it came down to it, he couldn't fulfill that promise. It wasn't his fault. Hierarchy, powers that be, all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, there's no me, there's like, you know, mission men me, there is no I in the army, there is a we. And he couldn't back me in that and go, yeah, you know, I've already said he can do this. Let's push that, because the army is a big machine, and it's like, right, well, we need you to be a full screw, or we need you to go on this exercise in Canada. That's what the army's telling you need to do. And I was like, well, I'm going to sign off. So there's no point sending me on a full screws course, because you'll just lose a full screw. And there's no point sending me to Canada, because I'm signing off. So it was like, right, think about it. If that's what you want to do, then do it. And I said, well, if I do, well, I'll get guaranteed I can go on this wedding. And they were like, yeah. So that's what I did.